This is the part 2 of what is JSON. So in the first part, we covered a very high level what a JSON format is. And this is just a level 2 of the same presentation, which is going to go deeper. Still non-technical, but a little bit go deeper so you can have a better understanding what happens under the hood in a JSON format. What is JSON? JSON is a very easy text-based or data format for storing and transferring the data. And on the right side here, you see an example. So JSON stores different objects, and it starts with the curly braces like this one. You see, this is where it starts with, this is where it ends. And this is like an envelope for data. And in this case, we'll have a property called title, and it's called understanding JSON. That's the value of the property or the value of this key. Property is probably a better way to say it, or attribute. Another one is level. It says big and friendly. This is just both of them are text. And the third one is different. The third one is called benefits, but in this case, it's an array of similar values. You can see this is 3 different strings. They're comma separated. So this is an array. It starts here with the square brackets, and then it ends with the closing square brackets. It's an acronym. JSON is an acronym for JavaScript Object Notation. It's a very lightweight, very easy to read format. And because it's text-based, it's very easy for human to understand and also easy to understand for machines, for the computers. And this is a little analogy here if you want to, if this helps. So property names give it a labels, what's inside. So for example, name, in this case, name is the name of the property and Alice is the value. So that's the value. In this case, age is the property, but number 28 is the value. And you can see this was text because we put it in a double quotes over here, but in this case we don't. This is just a number. Here's another example if it's employed or not, and the value is true. So in this case, it's a Boolean value. And hobbies can be a list of values. So this is the singing, reading, hiking is just unique to this particular person. And it's an array of values. And here's another interesting here. So in this case, we have address, and we see again curly braces here. So that's another object. So address is not it's not a number, it's not a Boolean, it's not a text, it's another object. So the same way we start object with curly braces here and then it here, the address is an object and it has property city, zip code, and this is the value of those properties. So just think of it, it's an object that is included in the bigger object, in the object around it. So this is like a root or parent object, and this is like a nested object inside of the parent object. All right. So this is just a little recap over here in the bottom. So curly braces contain indicate objects, square brackets can indicate arrays, and we separate values by column, by periods. We separate the property and the value by column. All right. So we covered on this in the previous video why non-technical people care about JSON, and it's just the end. It's a very simple answer because all the applications that you work with, they use JSON behind them for communicating the data, sending data, and that includes web applications, any software integrations. Every time you do data import and export, most likely there's a JSON behind it. And now with the growing popularity of no coding tools, more and more people building applications or solutions with no code tools. And you don't need to know programming languages anymore because now you can use plain English for prompts. But as you start building more and more complex systems, you need to interact with other services, you need to understand a little bit about APIs, you need to know about the configuration files. And all of those configuration files and APIs and data are usually presented in the JSON formats. It's just going to help you to have basically understanding what JSON is and how the data is communicated between applications and computers. Right. So we already covered a little bit. So where is JSON used in business? Data exchange, analytical dashboards, user profiles, product catalogs. This is just a few examples of where JSON format is present, even though you don't actually see it as a user of those systems. Most often you don't see it, but this is how data is communicated. All right. And here is another illustration of what JSON object is. And what are they talking about this? So if you see the employee data example on the left, so an employee in this case is an object. You see it's an object and it ends here, but it's kind of contained in the parent object. So visually here we can call it a root object. Inside of a root object, we have a nested object called employee. Without employee, we can have a property called name, and the value is John, and that the department can be HR, and this person has a list of different skills, and so it's called skills, but it's an array of different skills like communication, coordination, etc., etc. So this is just a visual example. I was saying this like an envelope. So think of it as a root object, we call root envelope, a big envelope, and inside of it has a nested envelope that has all these other things inside of it. Right. This is a little bit, this is just examples. I don't think I can zoom it close enough. Just more for illustrative purposes, examples of a JSON object. In this case, it can be user profile if you use any app. And inside of the app, you log in as the user and you can edit your user profile. This is how it's stored on the backend. If you have an event, you may have event name, a date and location and sessions for that event. For data, for location date, you have address, or we have a city and have a geographical coordinates there. Again, this is just different examples. You can see more examples over here. These are just examples of JSON data. Okay, again, briefly, in the real-world examples, we can see business applications using JSON, like web analytics, dashboards, SaaS applications, all kind of SaaS applications using JSON for CRMs, for HR systems, and on. And again, this JSON behind each one of them. One important thing is people ask all the time why we don't use comma-separated value CSV files, which is very common. We use it in the spreadsheets like Excel or Google Sheets. That's a very good question. Both formats actually are widely used, and each one of them has advantage and a disadvantage. In the CSV file, of course, you have columns, right? It's a column table. It's basically a table with a column. So the first column has a name, then you have skills, and the second column, and in this case, the H is the number in the third column. So you can do that. It's usually convenient for importing and exporting data, but for sending one record from one server to another or from one server to application, if you just want to send one record, it's probably not a best way to do it. You probably want to use JSON. But another example is that CSV file is very structured, right? And if you want to have an Alice, for example, does she have a pet or not? Some people have pets, some don't. So it might be an inefficient way to store data in a CSV file. But in JSON file, you can have different properties, different attributes for different people. So you can have skills, age, but for example, for Bob, you can say a pet and give it a pet name, like a pet name and what kind of a pet, it's a dog or a cat. So you can have additional information about a particular person just for Bob, for example, but you're not going to have the same information for Alice. And you can actually add any information you want to for one record and record like means Alice. And you don't have to specify any of these additional fields for Bob or any other user. All right, so these are the comparison, the advantages and disadvantages when to choose which format, JSON versus CSV. So JSON, as I said, is better for complex data. CSV is just for tabular data. JSON can produce larger files than CSV because in the CSV you only mention the column names once. And again, this is what says the JSON is a structured, well-structured data, but it can be complex data, hierarchical, etc. And CSV file are usually good for tabular data. All right. So the benefits and limitations of JSON, right? So JSON is good for human and computers. Both. It's very transparent, very easy to understand which data means what. It's fairly lightweight and efficient. There's minimal overhead. You can use it in any programming language, and it's ideal for things like APIs and web applications and mobile applications. It's not ideal for tabular data. It can become complex because you can have a nested objects inside of each other. Again, it depends how you structure it. It's your choice. If you want to do this, what if you can do very complex things? And it only has few built-in data types like a number, a string, a boolean, but it doesn't have any other more interesting data types, for example, like date. It doesn't support date, so it basically gives you data as a string. So it's not perfect, but it has many useful applications. All right, so what's the takeaway? Use JSON when you need to exchange structured data between different systems or applications. It's great for web services and API, that the web services that provide data, for example, for the applications. It's great for hierarchical data or nested objects, and it's great for building modern applications, right? So there's a few other things that you need to know about JSON, but they're more like technical, and I will present them in the short next video. For now, thank you for watching, and I hope this is helpful.